information dissemination? What's that all about?
Yeah. So essentially, and this is my very personal take, is I think, especially now, right? Like in everything that we're in the midst of, like collaboration is having its moment. But at the same time, it's the culprit and it's part of the problem. And I think generally where when teams feel unproductive is when they're not collaborating enough. I think we're all collaborating more than we ever thought we would. It's when things don't actually disseminate properly. That's when you get ineffective. That's when you need to start basically overcorrecting to make sure that the information's gone to the right places and that it's actually seeping in. And that's where basically it's like a crappy loop to be in, right? Because you go back to more collaboration, which makes you less productive.
Any aspect of performance, whatever you want to be good at, right? So you're mentioning how do you sustain long-term performance? So that might come under like resilience or energy or strength. Like you got to be motivated. So if you want to be more resilient to sustain performance, right? If that's the main thing, okay, then you got to look at the different dimensions of performance and what you can do in each little area that's going to benefit what you want to be good at. And I always find those dimensions are mental, physical, emotional, and relationships. So across those four areas, and mental's like IQ, knowledge, skill set development, and then physical is diet, exercise, sleep, like the basics. Emotional is like understanding, like your emotional intelligence, understanding that you have emotional responses, but then what you can do in the moment to control your action after you have the response. So you might be terrified and your body wants to freeze, but then you sort of have the experience and the tool set to like not freeze and continue in a right action. And then relationships is just like the support that you put in around you. Because in big wave surfing, so much of being a good big wave surfer and charging on the day is if you have a good safety member, like a jet ski water safety person on your team in the channel, keeping an eye on you. Like when I've got someone like that, I'll take twice as many risks as what I would normally because I know that person's there. And then that pulls out into any aspect of business. Like, you want to be good at anything in business, you need the skill set, the knowledge, you need to have the physical energy, you need to understand, like have that emotional intelligence for yourself and other people. And then you've got to have it, you got to be able to manage a talented team to make yourself better. So it's just, I think like always trying to pull out little pieces from each of those dimensions of performance, regardless of what you want to do. That's kind of the best way, because then you get that factor where it's like, leave no stone unturned, you know, because
That
there's
relentless
usually
improvement.
the thing that's holding you back is usually something that's not at the forefront of your mind. Because the things that usually will have the biggest effect on us, we usually don't want to think about them. Like you naturally push them aside because they're difficult to deal with, you know. So you got to force yourself to find it and then deal with it. And then that's, you know, like that will probably be the thing that gives you the most progression in performance.
So, you know, just to put it in perspective, you know, I did a presentation to the board, Apex and Index were the initial investors, and we were currently at $150 million run rate. And I gave a presentation and said, we're going to make $2 billion this year. And, you know, you could have heard a pin drop because they didn't really understand, like they knew things were going well, but they didn't know how well. And we weren't even on that. At that point, when we made the presentation, we were at, you know, we're making a $150 million, you know, around 150, $200 million run rate, right? So how do we know that we're going to make 2 billion? Well, it's mathematics, right? If you know that users are going to retain this long and you can estimate, you can see the trajectory of how many new users that you're going to retain, and you know what rate that they monetize for, that's called, you know, and that's something I specialize in, which is cohort-based forecasting. You can predict the future, you know, with a high degree of accuracy. And so we actually came out, I think at the end of the calendar year with $1.94 billion gross bookings within the first year. So that was
that's nuts.
That was nuts, yeah. But the other qualification was, and this is where I said, but we'll only make that $2 billion if you do if you let us do what we say, and that was, don't give us a marketing budget, give us marketing parameters. So when going through the economics of it, we know that we can afford for $3 for every user, or $5, whatever it was at the time, right? So ipso facto, and we know that we're going to make that back within 3 or 4 months. So you would be foolish not to spend as much money as hard and fast as you can to maximize the potential of this game. So if you just said, okay, well, we're at this rate and we're going to have a classic marketing approach, and you've got a $100 million budget for the year, go for it. It never would have worked. So I think, and in the first year, we spent something in the order of $400 million USD in marketing on Candy Crush alone, right? That's larger than
400 million.
400 million. So that's larger than any movie, but like any movie budget, that you'd probably come across. We're spending at its peak about $1.8 million a day, I think, that was on mobile banner advertising alone. We spawned an entire industry, and mobile advertising was very immature back then. And in fact, we probably wasted so much money because we were moving so quickly. Everyone was what we call arbitraging, us, and probably cheating us out of money. But as long as we were hitting our metrics, and that we were buying it cheaper than then it's fine, right? Just keep the fire stoked with the coal,
There are some people who will never get it, and that's something that I have struggled with, and I've thought that it's on me or my fault, like I haven't been communicating something properly. And I think so long as you are aware of that and trying to communicate with people and giving it a shot, giving it a chance, but there's definitely a point where you have to be like, this idea, this product, this brand, this podcast is not for everyone. If you were for everyone, like, I just don't know what you could possibly stand for. I mean, you would just be like a home brand talking about just whatever kind of thing. But people are always going to have an opinion, and I think it's better to be polarizing in a way, and it's better to have conversations or offer something that might be polarizing for someone, because you're speaking to people trying to make some kind of emotional or intellectual connection. So it's like, yeah, it's just different people like different things.
Like that.
Not everyone
But I
can
mean,
like
it's
us,
hard.
though.
Like, I definitely battled in the beginning with feeling like people weren't understanding fluff and our messaging. I mean, just from a brand aesthetic point of view, like, there's no way that I could talk to a 16-year-old and a 65-year-old with this, visuals and typography and photography. They want very different things.
Yeah.
So, I have to make a call on who I'm speaking to in that regard. And then even an 18-year-old and a 30-year-old are at different points in their life and value different things. So you can either sort of try and be like, quite general and speak to both of them, but then you're obviously not going to have that much like individuality at all. Or you can be like, no, fuck it. Like, we're going really hard after this demographic, and it doesn't matter if we lose this amount because this is our core audience.
I want to talk about your team then. So obviously you've built this up into what it is at the moment. How important was selecting the right people to jump on board and picking that team to expand?
Oh yeah, massive. I mean, I guess when you're trying to go, particularly in tech and digital advertising and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of agencies that can provide really good services, but we've really made a conscious effort to try and bring all facets of the business in-house over the last 2 years in particular. We've gone from 7 full-time staff to 24 in the last 2 years. Obviously everyone's working at home at the moment, but we just found productivity, speed of execution, ability to attract the right people. You just, rather than paying a retainer for an agency, you just got far more bang for your buck with a really passionate, brilliant person if you could offer them a full-time role. So yeah, it's been absolutely paramount to the success of the business. We've got, we're really big on customer service, 24/7 customer service through our, social media channels and through email. because I think people need to be supported. I think getting in shape isn't easy. You know, if it was, 60% of us wouldn't be overweight or obese. So they need help. They need motivation. They need a hug. They need a kick in the pants from time to time. But, you know, they need someone there to help them. And even though it's an online program, I never want our 28ers to feel like they're doing it by themselves. So we've got a customer service team of nearly 10 full-time people. And then, yeah, all our techs in-house, marketing, content creation, CEO, who is one of my best friends from school that I've known since I was 13 years old, and is just an absolutely brilliant bloke.
That's cool.
Yeah, mainly girls that we work with, and most of our, I think out of 24, it's 19 women and five guys, and yeah, absolutely beautiful, brilliant team, and yeah, couldn't do any of it without them, that's for sure.
So you got 10. That's unreal. So 10 out of your 24 are just customer service for that support.
Yeah, we
that's the
we
difference.
don't want people to be waiting for help. You know, if you're waking up at 6 a.m. and you're trying to do a workout and you need help, we want to help you. We don't want to go, oh, I know you were trying to do a workout at 6 and it's now 4 p.m., but this is what you should do.
Did you start like that from day one? Like, did you know that was something that you wanted to invest in and focus on from day one, or did it grow organically based on like people realizing in your programs, hey, actually, we need more people on here because there's way more questions coming through than we thought there'd be?
It's a great question. It was something we were always really big on. Obviously, as the number of members we have has grown, that team has grown to be able to cater for the demand. But we've always, the ratio probably hasn't changed. You know, even when we only had a couple of thousand members on the program, we still had 2 or 3 full-time people making sure these people weren't. And it's like you create that reputation and you create that expectation. And rather than us thinking that was a bad thing that we'd created because now we had to maintain it, we knew that was part of the magic and part of the thing that really, you know, one of the reasons that sort of distinguishes from some of the other online programs out there. So we've made sure that we've always sort of hung our hat on it. And when new people come into the program, it's, you know, 50% of the time, if not more, it's from word of mouth. And they're always told the support that you get as part of the 28 family is second to none. And we want to make sure we deliver on that.